Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. We are back again for a weekly check-in with my girl, Lisa Durden. What it do?
Hey, girl. Ooh, a bitch is hot. It's hot in the state of New Jersey. I don't know where y'all at around the world or wherever you're looking at this clip at or this content, but it's hot and muggy in Jersey. It's a little bit of old people's, heat because I'm 56. I might be having some menopause, but I think 10-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and 85-year-olds are hot at this point.
Yeah, it's hot over here too. It's nothing but sweaty armpits and booty cheeks up in here. So I totally agree. We have a lot to cover. This Tuesday, it was the primaries in several states, New York, Kentucky, North Carolina, Virginia. I want to first, let's go to NYC. Last week, you told us to check out Jamaal Bowman, who ran for the 16th congressional district.
Yes.
Tell us, give us the news on that.
Well, the 16th congressional district is very interesting. It's popping. So this guy, I don't know, they talk about how someone comes out of nowhere, but he didn't come out of nowhere. Jamaal with 2 A's, Jaamal, Jamaal Bowman. He's a progressive. Now, I had heard that he was a Green Party person. I'm not for sure if he was Green Party, then he went progressive, Democrat, just to run in the primaries. I'm thinking he had to do that because I think, from what I understand, if you're doing primaries, whether you're running for an office or you're voting for an office, you cannot be an independent, which is so effed up in this country, but whatever. So I think he's actually a long-term Green Party person, but I guess to run, he had to turn into a Democrat. So he actually took out this long-standing person named Eliot Engel, a white guy in the 16th district. And the 16th district covers North Bronx, the south half of Westchester County, Mount Vernon, Yonkers, New Rochelle, Rye, New York, and those areas. And some of those Westchester County areas are very white. Rye and New Rochelle, not as white, but Rye is very white. So this guy came from quote, quote, nowhere. He used to be he is or used to be a principal, a middle school principal. Black guy, real cool, like very about it, very Black Lives Matter, very about justice, not just because he's black, he happens to be black. So this Engel guy thought he was just gonna come up there and take it because a whole lot of folks with a whole lot of power backed him. And let me just name names so y'all can stop voting for them. Because here's what happened.
Name them. I'm ready.
Okay? I'm dropping names and I'm taking numbers. Okay. So let me just, couch this by saying, we talk about nothing changes, right? You have these people who are in these political positions that don't have, term limits. We need to have term limits for all political positions, but for now we don't. For the House and Senate positions, we do for governors and in some cities, mayors, of course, the president and the like. But these people who are in these seats, they're I call them lifers. You know when you do life in prison, they're lifers. So these are lifers who just feel like because you're a Democrat or if you're on the far extreme because you're a Republican, it's just automatically I'm going to get your vote because everything's based on party. So a lot of these long-term Democrats who've been, in these seats in powerful positions, they were actually, these super PACs, as they call them, had been putting money behind these old, dusty, rusty, do-nothing politicians. So let me just tell you who was backing this fool, Engel. Hillary Clinton dropped the bomb, as they used to do on the Wendy Williams show, boom. You have, what's his name? Chuck Schumer. He's in the Senate. And our friend that everybody's talking about now, they found him sexy and they want him to be president and they loving him since the COVID. Every day he was doing a press conference like he was in his own little reality show, preempting my show, The View. Andrew Cuomo. So like Andrew Cuomo, Chuck Schumer, and Hillary Clinton, these old guard power players in politics, were backing this old do-nothing politician Engel for the Senate. Honey, please. Well, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, let me say that again. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC as they call her, said, we ain't about to do that. She backed Jamaal. So what had happened was, after she backed Jamaal, some other organizations started to go, wait, whoa. AOC is pretty powerful. Let me see what I'm about to do. So then when he was looking like his campaign was fledgling and it wasn't going to be going well, after she jumped in the game and backed him, boom, he had an organization called Progressive Change Campaign Committee that backed him. Working family parties backed him, and Justice Democrats backed him. And I think the New York Times and a couple of other publications backed him because they knew they better be on the right side of history when they backed him. Now I hope he's good. I don't know much about some of these politicians.
Can I just say something really quick? Let me tell you another group who was on the wrong side of history. The Congressional Black Caucus supported Elliot Engel.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And let me just say something.
Those are some old pimps that need to go.
Some old pimps. I mean, some straight up, before the Cadillac, we talking about Model T Ford rolling in the Model T Ford pimp.
The bell bottoms and Afro picks in their hair. Like, really? Like, really? And listen, I am not making any claims to be young. I'm 56. So I'm on the other side of over a century old, a couple of years beyond a century old. But I do not think that it's about putting old people out to pasture, because I think that there's a place and space for all kinds of people for all kinds of reasons. But this kind of thing needs to be, we need to pass the baton as the track runners do, or pass the mantle for this kind of thing, because all these people who started the Congressional Black Caucus and all these pimps when they were younger were these people. So you had your chance. Now you need to go on and you first of all, you should have groomed people, but you thought you just had our vote. So move on into, speaking circuits and writing books. I'm not saying you don't do anything. You have your nonprofit organization and you help to groom other up and coming Democrats. But these people got in these jobs at 30 something, like Maxine Waters and these other people. They got there in the 1970s or whatever, and they've been in there and they have the Congressional Black Caucus and all of that, but they won't die off. It's like a bunch of roaches. You can spray them bitches and they still live. They know that poison, they got used to it. It's almost like a vaccine. Roach spray is like a vaccine for roaches. That don't work. So I'm glad you have these aggressive progressives coming in like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that ain't scared of nobody. She's killing it. Now, the downside to that is, or the potential downside is, I don't want you to turn into them, right? I don't want you to turn into the Maxine Waterses and the John Lewises and the Clyburns and all these pimps who are in there. And I'm gonna say, Auntie Maxine too, you a pimp too, bitch. You too. And all them ass hats. And they were once okay, because at the time they had the energy and all that, but then once they got in there, I don't know what year they went left. I mean, I'm 56, Maxine could be my mom. Maybe it was 10 years in, maybe it was 15 years in. Kamala Harris has been in there for a hot minute, and Cory Booker for a hot minute too. So I'm not for sure how long it took you to turn into poison. I don't think most of these politicians, particularly these Democrats, go in there with the intention of, being poison. But when you get in there, you're connected, these super PACs, you giving these contracts and you're getting kickbacks, and the power becomes kind of comfortable, and you get to be a little bit of addicted to the power. The power's a drug. I think that it's hard for the average person, and most of us are average, to not fall prey to the attraction and the addiction of power once you get it. So, with that said, as they say, I hope that now that Jamaal's looking good, he's in the primaries, he's killing it, and AOC's in there pushing him, and others like him, and we'll talk about some more in a few minutes, that when he gets in, I'm gonna say when he gets in, that you don't stay there a long time. You don't have to wait for them to make term limits a law. You can give your own self-imposed term limits. Just have other plans. So go in there, make a difference, bring others in like you, have them spread out, making a difference, and then you can move on. There's a healthy dose of you going on, so that there is no situation where you're getting comfy, cozy with the power. But I am so loving Jamaal, honey. Jamaal and Clinton, he's cute. Mm-hmm.
He is very, very handsome, very distinguished, and I think very refreshing and a needed voice. I have to agree. I really, and I think we talked about this several weeks ago about AOC is creating her own, comrades, or this collective, and like you said, the CBC, the ones who supported him, they've been in, like Ingle was in office for 16 terms.
What? I didn't even keep up with what? You see what I'm saying?
You know, so like it's at what point, and you're supposed to be, and I know the justification of working on the Hill is when you have that much tenure, you have power because you often sit and chair on committees. You have negotiating power for brokering bills and deals, bills and, you know, just getting things pushed and moved. But a lot of the CBC members don't get bills passed, and they've been there for a very long time. The only thing that CBC members have done very well is deliver the Black vote.
And they didn't do anything to get that, because it's almost like we're walking, talking robots. We're so, it's to the point where now, even if you mention to the average Black person, I don't know about persons of color, I don't speak a lot to others outside of the Black race as much, but in the Black community, they've gotten us so wound up like you know, like Talkie Tina's. You know, if you watch the Twilight Zone, you know who Talkie Tina is, a character in an episode called Talkie Tina. So there's a battery in our backs, and it's been, you know, happening so long that it's as if to even say, I'm not voting for this person, you are actually the problem. Whatever happened to one person, one vote situation? So I have said many times on social media, I'm not voting for Joe Biden, and I'm still not voting for Joe Biden. I'm going to vote for an independent person when I go into the booth. And don't sit there and tell me that a vote for someone else is a vote for Trump. A vote for the other person is simply a vote for that person. These are the verbal jousting, the verbal games they play. How do you mean, where's the math at in that? Where's the math at in you're telling me if I don't vote for this person, I voted for this other person? Like, no, math doesn't work that way. The vote I gave to person A is simply the vote I gave to person A. It doesn't transfer to person B. There's no osmosis happening with my vote. So this is what happens. It's almost like, you know, people don't even want to say they're not going to vote for a Democrat because it's almost like you're an atheist. Although actually I'm an agnostic, I don't believe in the deity, but that's another story. But to say you are not voting for a Democrat and you got Black skin, even when you saw Joe Biden said on the Breakfast Club, that was a dog whistle. Well, if you don't vote for me, you ain't Black. Like, and that's why the hell I ain't gonna vote for your white ass. Now that you cemented my vote for somebody else, you bastard. Who do you think you're talking to?
Well, you know, it's so very interesting how breaking out of this mentality of Black voting is almost, it's treated as if it's sacrilege, as if you've committed some kind of grave moral sin. And it's really interesting the way they play these psychological games when it comes to voting, this idea of vote or die. And they put all of these just interesting measures. And it's like Black people come up, you know, show the vote, and voting, you know what I'm saying? It can be debated that it hasn't been as effective as people say it has been.
Well, first of all, I mean, I say this all the time. When it comes to the presidential election, I'm not saying your local elections, those are extremely important. I'm not saying don't vote, because I vote all the time. I've been voting since 18. I don't miss a vote, even the school board. But I wish a mother clucker would try to tell me who I should and should not vote for. Number two, all that BS about your vote counts in presidential elections, no, it does not. Your vote does not count in presidential elections. This is not my opinion, it's a fact. The people who select the president is the Electoral College. Now, when I say it doesn't count, you're not electing the president. Now, you might be, you know, if a whole bunch of us show up and they see lots of us that vote for person A or B, it might influence the Electoral College to say, oh, well, we're gonna go in this direction or that direction. But at the end of the day, you did not vote for the president of the United States. Now, until there's a dismantling of the Electoral College, I don't want to hear nothing. Now, for those who are watching, I'm not saying don't vote. If you don't mind driving a car, I don't know about other places around the world, but in America, driving is not your right, it's a privilege. But we all want that privilege, and we go get that license at 17, or, you know, some states are 16. So if you want to be thirsty for privilege, be thirsty for your rights too. So I'm not saying don't vote. Go out there and vote as well because it's your right. But be real clear. The reason why we really don't have any clue as to, who the right person is, because everybody gets in based on this electoral college, and that's all based on, I call it that's the Twilight Zone music. It's some little Twilight Zone music playing in the background. I don't know what y'all doing back there in these private rooms and I don't know what y'all doing. So like they know we have no power there. And think about it. You would think that even the Democrats would want that to be dismantled, but they don't say nothing about it. You don't see any Democrats, presidential candidates over the years. You don't hear any senatorial candidates over the years, gubernatorial candidates over the years. You never hear anybody in politics on either side pushing to dismantle that electoral college, because I'm thinking that it's as simple as dismantle it. Maybe the House can put something on the floor. Like, I'm sure it's not as hard to introduce a bill and to get it done. And there has been times in this country, I'm 56, so I'm over half a century old, where we have had the House as Democrats and have had the Senate, and where we have not. So don't tell me we couldn't have dismantled it by now. I think they all benefit some kind of way. I can't tell. All I can tell you is doony noony, doony noony, doony noony, doony noony.
Yeah, yes. But I think, when I say that people vote and it really hasn't been effective is because now the vote has been presented as like some kind of miracle pill, that if you just cast a ballot, that the next day, miraculously, your life will be better. Voting is only one part of citizenship and activating your citizenship. You can't expect anybody, regardless of what their intentions are going into office, to carry out your interest if you're not keeping their feet to the fire. So that's another reason why I'm saying, well, you voted, but that's all you did. And you're like, well, such and such didn't do anything for me. Well, you didn't hold this person accountable. I hate that word, but you didn't hold this person accountable. You think that voting is a pill, you swallow it and everything will be okay. And so that's what I mean. It's like, yeah, we're voting, but the efficacy of it.
The first part was, I explained, the highest office in the land and how we start from the top. So that's the first thing. The first thing is not being able to elect the highest office in the top. Now, trickling down to your point, now when you get people in office, whether it be the highest office in the land, whether it be a mayor, whether it be a council person, whether it be a district leader, a board member, a governor, a senator, a congressperson, no matter who you're voting for, at the end of the day, you have to hold them accountable. There is no other kind of job, kind of profession, or kind of career where when you do a piss poor job, you still keep your job. The average person, we all know, when we're watching, we all know, I've been fired before. Everybody that's watching this clip or this content, if you're of a certain age, I guess if you're 10, no, it didn't happen to you yet. But if you're real grown, I'm gonna say at least 25 or 30 and older, we've all been fired before. Or if you've not been fired, you've been at a job where you got what you call a developmental plan, which is, on probation. They call them all kinds of things now. The STAR plan, the developmental plan, and you are on probation. So nowhere else in any profession, any career, any job, can you do a piss poor job for a long period of time and you still have your job and your benefits and all that and your raises, except for in politics, because it's a job that that is about popularity, not about effectiveness, right? So you can keep winning that position if you're popular. There should be something in place where it should be some kind of report card. You know how when you now at hospitals, you can look up on their website, the doctor's report card, and to see if this person does surgeries, how many successful surgeries, or the anesthesiologist, did you kill somebody when you give them anesthesia? Most people live. And talk, are there any malpractice lawsuits? You can see the report card and decide, I ain't going to that doctor, I ain't going to that hospital. So, and even like most schools have report cards. Now you can look on most schools' websites and see the report card, if you will. I'm saying report card. Some don't call it exactly that. So there should be a report card for these politicians. And then if the report card is an F, they shouldn't be able to even run to get on the ballot. There should be a requirement. You should meet certain baseline standards to even become a candidate. But it is what it is. So we need to be more engaged. What can make us more engaged? I can't answer. I don't know the answer to that. It's too deep of a problem.
Yeah, I just think when people talk about an overhaul, a large part of the overhaul is really, what are we doing about the mind and the education of folk? But I wanted to kind of continue on talking about these wins that came in the area. So you had AOC. She solidified her Democratic position in the primaries. I think she walked away with like 70% of the vote. She's in the
14th congressional district,
right? And then you have two other, and then you have Jamaal Bowman, 16th. But then you have two other Black men. I believe one is an Afro-Latino, then one is an African-American. Ritchie Torres in the 15th and Mondaire Jones in the 17th. So the 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th.
No, Mondaire Jones, 17th is Jamaal. No, is Jamaal 17th? You go, 17th, yeah.
No, Jamaal Bowman is the 16th. Yep. Ritchie Torres is the 15th, and then Mondaire Jones is the 17th.
Yep.
And so Mondaire Jones and Ritchie Torres are the first Black openly gay men to be in a position for Congress. Now, they haven't won the actual seat. It's in November where it's determined, but it's a heavily Democratic stronghold, so it's highly likely.
Yep.
So on paper, they look great. You know what I mean? They're Black men. Certainly Ritchie Torres has talked about coming from a single mother, struggled. Mondaire Jones's folk came from his grandparents came from the Jim Crow South. So they check all these boxes in terms of, especially like this momentum about Black Lives Matters. But how do we still hold folk like this accountable? Or what are your thoughts on it?
Well, first of all, I ran for political office. I ran for on the Green Party ticket 2 years ago or so, about 3 years ago, for lieutenant governor with the person running for governor. It makes me disgusted when I hear people of color, the first thing they want to say is, I'm from the projects. My mother was a single mother. We didn't have no money. We were hungry. My parents were from Jim Crow. My mother and father lived in Jim Crow too. I was born in Jim Crow. I was born in 1964. We didn't get civil rights until 1968. I'm also born in Jim. I am one of the generations. I'm the last generation born in Jim Crow. Now I grew up poor, but the first thing you pull out should not be those stereotypes. They're making me sick, because a lot of Black people don't connect and don't relate to that. A lot of Blacks who actually vote don't relate to what you're saying. Now, I'm glad they're in there, but I think we need to start working on these kinds of narratives. So that was the thing I didn't like as much, but okay, fine and dandy, they got in, fine. So let's stop trying to do these lowbrow things and think that we're all monolithic and every Black person is poor and every Black person's from the hood, every Black person's from the projects, every Black person's been hungry. Although I've been poor, but we didn't live in the projects. I don't know what that's like to live in the projects, but we were poor, yes. So I would like you to try to knock at my door about what you're gonna do. I don't care if I came from the projects. I don't care about you from the projects. What the hell are you going to do? Again, this is the battery in the back that they do. They try to get you with all these unrelated issues. I don't care where you're from. I don't care if your mother is single or you had both parents or your mother's and parents are dead or they're in jail. I don't care if they're on drugs or not. I don't care if they're PhDs. I don't care. What are you going to do? Tell me your platform. So this is why sometimes the wrong people can get in there. I don't know if these brothers are the wrong people, but I'm just saying we are voting on these items. You see what I'm saying? I'm not for sure why they voted for these brothers, but I didn't hear nothing about policies, what you're planning on doing. So I just hope that's not all you have in that bag of tricks is I'm from the projects, my mother's a single mother, and my parents are from Jim Crow. I mean, I don't know much about them other than what I've been reading about and hearing about. So fast forward to your point about holding them to the fire. If they get in November, we need to let them know that if you don't do the job, we're gonna fire you. How do you fire them? Vote them out. So I at least know that a bird in a bush is better than a bird in the hand in this case, meaning I would rather try these new dudes than these old crows. because that bird in the bush already got broken wings.
I totally agree. And I think in the words of hip hop, it's not where you from, it's where you at, where you gonna be at home.
Because what's interesting is people think blacks are monolith. Blackness, we all understand it, right? Because from the most expensive top of the hill to the bottom of the basement and in between, we all know about racism. Oprah Winfrey, with the most money in America, even, she grew up poor, but even she had never grown up poor. She was not let in Hermes. She was not let into a store on Fifth Avenue. What's his name? The black actor tried to get a cab some years ago in the 90s and tried to get a cab and couldn't get a cab. What was his name? The black actor, he's old now.
Danny Glover?
Danny Glover tried to get a cab. So these things we all experience no matter what the economic background is. Even Henry Louis Gates, who's I went to Harvard, I'm an academic and all that other bullshit. He was climbing through his window because he lost his key and he was climbing through the window in his house. Like, your neighbor doesn't recognize you. Right. And then the cops came and bust his ass because he's climbing through a window in a white neighborhood. So Skip Gates, who's all hooked up and who's all academia and all academics and all that, got history books up his ass, and all kinds of papers in his brains and articles, and he's got all kinds of TV shows and PBS and all that stuff. He's still got treated like dirt. So I don't need to connect based on poverty. Although, yes, I have grown up poor. I have friends who have nothing similar to my background. My friend Iris never grew up poor. Her parents have PhDs and masters and professors, and she knows now because she's poor personally, but she didn't know what it was like to grow up poor, but we had lots in common. So that's all I'm just saying. Don't only do those battery in the back things because it tells me you're disingenuous. It tells me you're using poverty. You know that these are the least of us, and you feel like they want to hold on to this thing. Oh yeah, save us, y'all. Oh, save us from the hood. No, you need to get in there and do your job so that you pass policies where people can make a living wage. It's not $15 an hour. You can't live off of that. Where you have, when you say low income housing, that's cool too. We need low income housing, but what about making sure banks can loan me money to buy my own house? And they're not redlining and doing all kinds of built-in discrimination when you're applying for a loan. And how about academics? How about education? Where our children can be educated with books. I used to be a substitute teacher in the 90s. I could not believe there were kids, not in arts high school, I used to sub in arts high school, but some other schools where you got to hand your books back at the end of the day and come and pick them up at the early part of the day. When I was going, we took our books home with us every day, our own books. They weren't the best editions, but we had our own books. So the list is long. Healthcare, the list is long. Interestingly enough, you notice how, no matter how many years we have politics, I can run for president because all I got to say is, I'm going to be interested in getting good health care. I'm going to be interested in education and crime. You notice how it's the same thing? Mm-hmm. Nobody says anything different on their campaigns, from the top of the land to the lowest political position you can take other than school board is strictly about school. They all say the same thing because they're banking on your desperation, which of course our neediness, to make them think they're gonna change these things. If every politician has said education, crime, healthcare, and all that 5 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, why we ain't got it now? It's right. That's the same pitch they all say, and they've all been saying from the beginning of time. I mean, not the beginning of time, but
But I understand what you're saying. Running and actually being in office has become a template itself. And let me say this. On one hand, I am, as maybe a person who loves story and telling stories, I am for somebody, if you have a narrative, you have a story, you own your story and you be your story. But it should not define who you are, and it should not define, especially you in public office. So that template of, I came up from a rough upbringing. This is just me in a very rough gauge, has often been, and this is not everybody, but highly likely projected by Black folk of color, who have had a large amount of success and maybe are considered like the square or like, oh, you're not from here. And so they try to come back and reconnect with this community that they really haven't been a part of, like a Cory Booker, who says, you know, he was living in the projects, you know, and all that other bullshit. Did you hear that his girlfriend, Rosario Dawson, said that she's going to move to Newark so she could support her boo-boo? Okay, anyway, that was just a side note. I laughed.
So I said all that long-winded thing to say.
I'm sorry, I got off track. I apologize.
And we digress. It's all related. It's politics. You know, politics is, you know, on the table now. So I said all that to say about the two brothers, or for that matter, anybody. We're talking about these Jamaal and these other two brothers. I hope that that's not all they have, right? I hope that all they have is not just, you know, my mother was a single mom. So I'm glad that they're there. I'm not going to take away from the fact that they're there, because I still would prefer fresh meat. No pun intended. And I like the fact that now you're seeing people voting for people from the LGBTQIA community, IA plus community, and they're not holding that against them, because people still voted for them. From a cross section of different kinds of people. People are still very Christian and they still voted for them. So I'm glad to see that. So that hopefully this is a new day, and we will see what they do with these positions. I do feel like, however, because of the fact that we have social media, and that wasn't happening when Auntie Maxine got in and Clyburn got in and Lewis got in and Schumer got in and all these folks got in, Cuomo, that's a family legacy of politics. I think it'll be a little different when you're talking about Gen Xers and Gen Zers, holding them to the fire, these young people, because they communicate a bit differently. Although I'm a social media girl, but I still watch traditional TV with a TV in my bed. I don't have the computer in my lap all the time. So they live on their computers, they live on their phones, they live on their devices, so they can quickly, you know, make commentary about something. They can quickly cancel you if you screw up. So I think these younger people coming in might put some respect on it. We got to flesh out these old folks and get them into senior citizens' homes where they belong.
And, you know, I know definitely Mondaire Jones has been very active in the Black Lives Matter protests that have been going on in New York. So that's a good thing, but it also connects to just one more other race that happened in Kentucky. This was a highly contentious race between the Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate, between Charles Booker, who's a Black man, and Amy McGrath, who's a white woman. And the Democratic establishment backed Amy McGrath, who has said repeatedly she is pro-Trump, and dissed Charles Booker. Now, the thing we've been talking about every week, we say her name, Breonna Taylor. Charles Booker actually kind of curtailed his campaign to be a part of the Black Lives Matter protest, and has been in the forefront for Breonna Taylor and getting these officers, the other 3 officers is it 3 out of 4 officers? Yep. Getting all the officers arrested, actually, in the Breonna Taylor killing. So right now they're still counting ballots, but Booker is in the lead. So we'll know. We'll talk about that next weekend.
Okay,
because he says he is putting out to pasture Mitch McConnell's ass. Yes, that's who he's gunning for. He's gunning for.
Boy, bye, bye, McConnell, boy, bye.
Yes,
bye, McConnell. Yes.
And what he does very well, which goes to what you were talking about in terms of like this new type of voter that we're seeing, is he has like this saying is that he's like, I represent the essential workers from the hood to the holler. So he's talking about poor whites, Blacks, those who he feels that the McConnell administration has ignored, not even acknowledged, ignored for like decades. Mm-hmm. So we shall see, because I mean it's not a new thing, but in terms of having poor whites, working class whites aligned with folk of color, Black folk, we'll see if it's going to be effective.
As an electorate, or people who vote, that exact example, y'all, if y'all are watching, look at what your Democratic representatives are doing. Look at who they're backing. If you have a Democratic body or Democratic leader or political official who's backing a white racist, supremacist, a white supremacist like this woman backing her because she has a label called Democrat. You have a lot of Democrats who are racists and who support Trump. Lots of them. That's the problem. If the word Democrat is all you need to vote for somebody, you need to check yourself. So if you're not looking at this woman and who's backed her in the Democratic Party, then that's a problem. Look at who your political leaders are backing and don't back them. Because everybody should have been on board voting for this brother. Now, I'm gonna tell you what's happened. Not just because he's Black, but Black is a good reason too. Being Black is a good reason as well. Even when Obama ran, Colin Powell was a long-time Republican. President Obama, before he was President Obama, Barack Obama ran for office. Colin Powell had the good sense to know he had to vote for this Black man. He had to jump ship to vote for this Black man.
Yep.
Not because he was Black. That is maybe number 4 on the list. The man was overqualified to be the president. He's a lawyer. All you need is to be a certain age and be an American. He's overqualified. So he was qualified for the job. So he didn't, you don't need a whole lot of qualifications. Experience helps, but you don't need that to be the president because that's not a requirement. So he knew better than to vote for Bush again. And therefore he did not. So, and he worked for Bush before. So do y'all know better? Is all I'm throwing it out there. It's a rhetorical question, clearly.
Right. Yeah, so we will see that the vote should be in a couple of days. And if he is the winner, which it looks like it is highly likely, fingers crossed, it will be him and Mitch McConnell in November. It's going to be very interesting because the biggest issue during that vote was because of coronavirus, Kentucky, like a lot of states, changed the polling stations, and they removed 95% of the polling stations in the county, Jefferson County, where it's majority of the Black Kentuckians. There was in 600,000 registered voters, there was only one polling station. So this is going to be very interesting because the voter suppression is off the chain.
I don't know, can they do mail-in ballots?
Yes, they can do mail-in ballots as well. But so this is, I would say, the thing that we need to really be very clear, because some people were like, go vote because we don't want your stuff to be mailed. And then some people are saying mail in so your vote will count. So we need to come up with a very clear strategy because there's all these different directives coming up, and that's just a sign of a lack of leadership.
Correct.
So, last week we were celebrating Juneteenth.
Yeah.
And Juneteenth has come and gone.
Yep.
What had happened? Where everybody at now? What?
Well, I think people, I don't know if that needs to be a long legacy of, marching for that because you have other fish to fry. So people in the Black community in many states, I think except for 3, it was not a national holiday. It's not a federally mandated holiday like Martin Luther King holiday, but 47 states did recognize it as an annual celebration. So it's not like we weren't being celebrated, on the books in 47 states. And Black people have known, not every Black person knows, but we basically know about Juneteenth. So we did not need to be told. But what we wanted to do was kind of like, since we're having this groundswell, it's like making a pot of soup. While we're at it, throw some carrots over in there while it's on the stove. So it wasn't like it was the main course. It wasn't the piece of meat in there, but they threw it on the table. So now, since the ball is down the hill and we have this momentum, they're now reintroducing this as, passing legislation to make this a federal holiday. I think that was Kamala Harris and I think Cory Booker came together.
Right.
To participate in their whatever. So if that happens, if out of this, because this whole, protest and all that, it's going to end eventually. If when the smoke clears and out of it comes defund police, certain holidays, historical events in a society that have happened, become, recognized, federally, and other kinds of things happen out of this, to me, it's all good. So I don't think it's going to be the mouth. Juneteenth is not going to be in the mouths of people, all week, all month, all the rest of the year. No.
Right. So what I was saying, I was living in my head when I was saying this is that I think that some people think like, okay, we, Venmo'd or Cash App, Black people, $25, $15. Right. We bought a Black wine. We went to a Black restaurant. We tweeted on social media, Black Lives Matter. Okay, now we can kind of get back to it. But those of you who are listening, people are still protesting. There are still issues going on.
Yeah.
Monuments are coming down. People are still in these streets. Yep. It is not over. As a matter of fact, for some people, it has just started. So that's why I was like, well, Juneteenth is over. And I saw this this post by somebody, this white woman I know. She was like, oh, she was in a, what do you call it? A strip club class or a pole dancing class. That's what it is, excuse me. She was like, oh, I can get back to this again. And I messaged her. I said, it ain't over, boo-boo. Get off that pole and go up in them streets, right? It's not over. It is not over.
Yeah. So, no, I agree. So, it's not like, all right, y'all, like, all this stuff people are doing, these companies are now making Black folks CEOs, and you got Netflix saying you want to get a job here, put yourself on the database. That database is just going to be a database of a bunch of Negroes on a database. You can give us no job, so you're full of shit. But okay, that's fine. So, I'm at the SVA, the School of Visual Arts. They could watch this too, but Visual Arts sent all the colleges and the companies, they're sending out, they had maybe lawyers vet the content, we're sending out these letters telling you we stand by Black Lives Matter, like it's everywhere. The NFL, I made a mistake, not standing behind, Colin Kaepernick. Like a lot of rhetoric is happening now because people tearing stuff up. Some of it is provocateurs and not Black people, but the point is stuff is being torn up, whether it be people trying to agitate or sometimes it's just, a protest. We stomping and marching. So you're gonna have all of that, but don't be fooled, or rather don't think we're fooled, that we think you really give a crap. I'm not saying every white person doesn't give a crap. I'm talking about the system of racism. I don't mean individual white people I'm standing next to, because they're not the ones who created the issue necessarily. They're just beneficiaries of the white privilege,
Which I think in terms of, I like what you said, don't be fooled, as well as those who are in the corporate space. You need to find you need to activate your activism at this moment and really put your foot, I can't say that, put the feet to the fire, make them actually do some stuff, whatever that is. And I think maybe that's a conversation we could talk about next week. Like, what does that look like? Because I think a lot of people have been so kind of like, how do I navigate this space? Now it's a time for them to really move. They don't even know what to say, what to do, and so on and so forth. But I think this goes to the next issue I'm kind of jumping is we got a Karen alert. Woo, woo, Karen alert, Karen alert. Barbara Friedman, who was the HR at ABC, was put on administrative leave for reports of her creating a toxic work environment. And in response, she, wrote her legal representation, wrote this letter saying how she has actively worked in the space of diversity. A lot of staffers, or a number of staffers, had said she has not. In fact, at one point, when Robin Roberts, as you said, was negotiating, she wanted more money. And Barbara Friedman was disagreeing about it and said, it's not like we're asking her to pick cotton. So this is just one of many incidents, and she's put on leave. So this is like the type of corporate systemic racism where this person probably in her mind, Lisa, she swears for God, she is liberal, she is progressive, she is not a racist, but it is boo, boo, boo. It is what it is. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to throw in another thing too. Also, she tried to come after Sunny Hostin. That's my girl. She's the host on The View. And we all know Sunny Hostin's a lawyer. And Sunny Hostin has been on many levels of law. I don't think she's been a judge, but she's been a prosecutor. I think she's been a district attorney. She's worked with the FBI. She has a long history in law enforcement in that way. She had the nerve. I'm not for sure what was the spark that lit the flame of her saying this, but it was also alleged, I'll say alleged, that she said the same idiot, Barbara Fedida, who said about Sunny Hostin, a co-host on The View, that she was low rent. It's no secret that Sunny Hostin has told many times on The View, depending on the conversation, if it was about racism, she, was able to ride. She's from the Bronx. She was able to, she was in the projects and grew up in the projects. She was able to have both parents. She rose, was able to get her education and become a lawyer, but she was talking about many times the difficulties of trying to get equity. So she's mentioned that many times. So what you did was you took her talking about her past and used it against her and said low rent. Now, I don't know how true these statements are. These are alleged statements, but something tells me these statements are true because you have that fool, Michael Strahan, who's been asked about it because he works for ABC, Good Morning America, and he has other shows on ABC. And he said, oh, I couldn't talk about it for fear of ... What's interesting to me is you are rich and you have the fear of something. Can you imagine poor Black people? You are rich Black people and you still don't want to talk up for fear of ... It's not a fear. You like having that power. You like having that money and you want to keep that comfortable position because it's not happening to you. Because my thinking is, what fear do you have? You have a lot of money. And my thing is, they need you. You don't need them. Your likeness is making them a lot of money. So if behind the scenes, before we heard about it, you stepped to this situation because y'all heard about it before we heard about it, they were going to fire you? I don't think so. And if they did, somebody else will hire you because you're Michael Strahan, and that's some ka-ching for them. So that bothered me that a Black man, y'all need to get y'all's acts together. You gotta stand up for Black women. You just gotta do it. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of brutalizing Black bodies white folks are brutalizing Black bodies. Stop brutalizing Black bodies, podcast.com. But a shameless plug. But Black people, particularly Black men, allowing white folks to brutalize us in that way. It's lots of ways to brutalize us. So that bothered the hell out of me. Okay? The next thing, I love Whoopi. Let me pause.
What Whoopi do? What Whoopi do?
Whoopi Goldberg, and I'm not about divorcing people because I think that when you're on TV talking all the time, like I do, you're gonna say some whackness at times, and it just is what it is. So I'm not gonna, cancel a sister because I'm not into canceling. So I'm gonna give you a pass, but I'm gonna still check you, girl. So they talked about it a little bit on The View because, they had to would be like hypocritical. You talk about everybody else. So, you talked about Les Moonves on CBS as a rapist. So you couldn't kick his back in on CBS and then ABC on their own dirt under their fingernails. So they talked about it. Here comes Whoopi. So, different folks said stuff. And what makes it so whack is you're Black, Whoopi. Like the white girls on the panel, Meghan McCain and Joy Behar didn't do this roundabout on the conveyor belt and keeping Massa happy. They just said this straight up messed up. You had to do the Bojangles, didn't you? You did the dance. So she's going, well, so Sunny said, if this is true, I feel like this about it. And she broke it down and each person said something. Here comes Whoopi. I'm paraphrasing. Well, I've been knowing Barbara Fedida for a long time. And, I don't know what happened. I don't think she's racist. She's never seemed to be racist. But if this happened, we're going to do the investigation and they're going to check it out. And if it's true, she's got to go. Stop, Whoopi.
And see, yeah.
What is that, girl? What is that?
That kind of sounds like, when Monique went back and forth with Whoopi Goldberg, it just kind of sounds like that, right? And I really,
No, I'm listening.
That's all I had to say about that. But yeah, it was just like I had a Monique flashback. You may not.
You would have called me. I would have schooled you. Schooled her to do what you did 40 years ago when you started your career and do the same thing you did. No, you shouldn't be schooling some new school person to do the same thing you did, because if that's the case, we don't have no progress going on. No, I do not want a young person to come into the game the way I came into the game. I want you to come into the game bigger, better, faster, stronger.
Which is a lesson number 2 for white folks who say that they are in solidarity or ally. Your Black friend has been lying to you. The one who's been telling you, like the Michael Strahan who probably, broke bread with Barbara. I said her name.
Fedida.
I said Friedman. I don't know what's thinking.
Fedida. Fedida. Fedida.
Mm-hmm. Italian, interesting.
Yeah,
but
No, I think she's Middle Eastern of some kind.
Middle Eastern. Interesting. That's a whole new kind of we've been in talks talking about racism in the Middle East, but okay, I deviated. But these people who co-sign onto your racism is not that's we're not doing that anymore.
Can't do it. And here's what I will say, because the ABC ain't playing for me, I'm gonna drag them too. So think about it. Why was Barbara Fedida the head of HR anyway in the diversity initiative? You notice how these companies have white folks and other, except for black folks, the most marginalized folks, the reason why you should have diversity. You run diversity programs or diversity departments. Why was she over the diversity department to begin with? So ABC, I got to question why you put her there to start with. And now you want to make her the fall person for what's going on. Why couldn't you give that job to a black person? And when I say black, I don't mean African-American, because I mean black. You could be from Africa, Jamaica, African-American, under the umbrella of black. They never give black people those jobs. Recently, lately, yeah. So why was she in that job to begin with? ABC, you need to be dragged too.
And this is one of the issues I've been talking a lot about. So there's this thing, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And these are often the sectors in corporate structures, even like educational structures that's supposed to deal with diversifying, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. It has become, in my opinion, these DEI leadership positions are kind of like what happened to affirmative action.
Correct.
It was intended for people who have been severely left behind, which initially was black folk, but somehow white women get the cash cow, right? And then they, in a lot of ways, act out a lot of the racism, and they then stronghold the money and the resources. And this is what's going on in these DEI, these very significant DEI positions that you have in major corporations. We are going to actually end with Trump nephew, and he said that there were over 1 million people who signed up, and that was going to be there, and it was maybe perhaps 45% of the arena was filled. They said 20.
No, it wasn't. 45% of 1 million ain't 6,500 people.
Yeah, it was 6,500 people, and they said out of that maybe about 20 to 30% were actually staff that were there.
Correct.
So I have a question. Is this indicative of Trump losing steam, or should we not be fooled? Because last presidential cycle, we were like, he's not going to win. What are your thoughts on that?
We should not be fooled, because remember, especially now after he's been in office for these many years, people know to hide the fact that they voted for Trump, because after Trump got in, you have had people have gotten beaten for their vote. People have visceral reactions to people when they found out you voted for Trump. People have been confronted when they discovered that somebody voted for Trump in the workplace or in personal lives. So a lot of people, some people are bold enough to say, F you, I voted for Trump. But a lot of people know not to say they voted for Trump, and some are not necessarily white. So I think those people are still there. So I think those people are going to still vote for Trump. So here's the combination. You have people that voted for Trump who are underground and they're going to vote for Trump again. You have people who are, out in front and they're going to march hard for Donald Trump and say, MAGA people, and say, make America great again. Those were the ones who were there. And you have some people who did not vote for Trump last time and who's going to vote for Trump this time. Right? Some defectors from the Democratic Party.
Right, yeah.
Especially and even now, since the marching and the Black Lives Matter thing is resurging, and people are mad because these Confederate flags are coming down and the Columbus statues are coming down, and the NASCAR took down the Confederate flag, and you got football saying, we were wrong about Colin Kaepernick. It's a lot going on, and you got some angry white people who profess to be liberals who are now pissed too, and they're going to jump ship and go to Trump. Now, what those numbers look like, is that going to be a groundswell big enough for him to win again over Joe Biden or whoever is the Democratic selection? I don't know, but don't be fooled.
Well, that's a good point, because I was speaking with some students this week, And I said, because they were very excited and they were hopeful about all the stuff that they see. And I said, totally keep that energy, but also know with the momentum and the energy that you see with these protests, there's going to be a response. People are in the cut gearing up. There's going to be a response. And so that aligns exactly what it is, what you're saying. It has happened before. People sit back, okay, well, I'm gonna let you go ahead and have your day, but they're going to come out. I don't know what the response is. It's bubbling up, whatever that is. I just want to say as well, there is something, I don't know, maybe this is something we could talk about more next week, but just to kind of leave for thought. So part of the Trump speaking in Tulsa, he was going to actually speak on the 99th anniversary of what they call Black Wall Street, which was a very prominent section, wealthy section of Tulsa, the Greenwood district, which was the Black district. And it was totally basically neutralized by local white racists.
Right.
Now he is going to speak at the GOP convention, and the day he's going to speak at the GOP convention is the 60th anniversary of when the Ku Klux Klan attacked Black activists in what was called Axe Handle Saturday. What is up with them choosing these days of devastation and tragedy upon Black people by white racists?
Well, they want to stir up the base, right? So they know that we're going to have these conversations saying, oh my God, he was trying to talk on Juneteenth. So, you having your rally on Juneteenth, so he canceled that, people are talking. And now you're having this, people are talking. So the more people talk, the more people of color, Black people talk about this, and the outrage of it all is outraging the base. Yeah, and it's a division. He wants to do the division because that's the only way he thinks he can win, although he won with Electoral College. But he wants to create this division so that the optics looks like he actually won fair and square. The division is putting a blanket over the fact that you stole the election last time, and you might steal the election this time because you didn't win fair and square last time, and you're not going to win fair and square this time if you even win. So that's what that is. Because really, technically, really, I can't speak for all Blacks. We're not a monolith, but do any Black people care? Does anybody Black give a crap, literally, what Donald Trump does on these days and at these rallies and when he has and when he doesn't? Is that impacting our lives? I mean, it should, because he's the president. He's still in the job. But at the end of the day, is that screwing up our agenda? We're literally marching toward our agenda. So, I mean, it's worthy because we're discussing it. Is it disrespectful? Is it tacky? Is it all of those things? Yeah, but at the end of the day, I don't care, and I'm hoping Black folks don't care and don't pay him no mind. He's like a child kicking and screaming in the aisle of the supermarket because they want the cookies, and mommy said you can't have the cookies. So they're throwing a tantrum to try to make the mother don't want the attention because the child's throwing a tantrum.
I agree. He is the master of chaos and he is the master of confusion, and that's right. We need to keep focused. But this is I guess in the line of I hope every goddamn ancestor rides on his ass on that day. Okay, you can play like that. I want you to do that today. I want you to go to that in Memphis and do that. I want you to go over there by the Audubon Ballroom on the day Malcolm X and try and do that. You will have I hope every ancestor comes out their grave and ride on your tap dance all up over you. So I know that is just some, spookism, as they say, but good luck with keep on poking the bear on that one.
Right. So so I feel like we need to remain focused. Black folks and people of color and our allies need to remain focused on the issues at hand. While he's doing that, we're going to be painting Black Lives Matter murals in Washington, D.C. on buildings and things. And so we're going to keep that moving. Like that big long street that says Black Lives Matter right by the White House. So that what the mayor decided to do in DC. So you keep on doing that. We're gonna keep on putting up permanent stuff, because eventually that'll evaporate. Your visit will evaporate. It doesn't stay in society like that.
So my last thought of the day, and
it's over already.
Yes, I know. My last thought of the day is it's Friday, and guess what? We need to arrest those cops that killed Breonna Taylor. What are your final thoughts, Lisa?
Arrest the cops, lock up the cops, charge the cops, convict the cops. You know who said that? That's my God, Tamika Bell. Arrest the cops, charge the cops. Once again, say her name. Hashtag, please put this, hashtag say her name. Once again, you know, we continue to only care about Black men's lives. Not just we as Black folks, but people, period. But because Black people care about Black men's lives so much, it trained the society to also make that the priority too. So we need to stop that as a people. We need to stop looking at only how Black men are being harmed and how Black men's bodies are brutalized, when really more Black women are raped by the police, more Black women are beaten by the police, more Black women are beaten and brutalized, period, by Black men and other people too. More Black women are, do people realize that the fastest growing prison population is Black women and women of color, but Black women in particular? Do we know that? But yet a woman, which I love her, Ava DuVernay did a film about Black men in prison, 13th. Well, okay, then I guess I have to do the film about Black women in prison because we're the fastest growing population in prison. Okay, so we don't care, not me, but I'm saying as a race. So we need to change that paradigm. We need to shift that paradigm to say Black women's lives matter. And so, yes, luckily, I'm going to say this. If it weren't for Beyonce's open letter, I don't know if we mentioned that last week, that she wrote an open letter a couple of weeks ago, like a day or two after the open letter went out there, then they at least fired them. But there's a groundswell happening around this case. Kimberly, she's the one that started, say her name, Kimberly, what's her last name again?
Kimberly Crenshaw.
Thank you. Kimberly Crenshaw, who started Say Her Name, that organization, the movement, now she's an organization, spoke in front of Congress last week for us not to forget her. And she's talking about why it's important to keep Black women on the agenda, to make Black women a priority. She brought up all of that. So in this, I guess they did it via Zoom or whatever they did. So in this discussion, she testified in front of Congress. She had Ayanna Pressley and a few other politicians, but yeah, so it's important. Just because you and I are talking about it doesn't mean it's going to change the culture. But if we don't talk about it, it won't change the culture. We have to work 5 or 10 times harder to make people care, Black people in particular, about Black women's bodies being brutalized. And I don't care that, and when we've had these conversations online, you have people say, but when you saw George Floyd being choked, that's the difference. I don't care the mode, right? Okay, I didn't want to see the visual of that, but you're gonna now start weighing death. So since he got choked out, and we physically saw him die live on camera, but we didn't see Breonna Taylor get shot up, and it was just not visually there, that makes him his life more important? No, it's not. It's all sick. It all needs to end. Black people in particular need protection, and Black people, particularly Black men, need to step the hell up. Y'all said it. I ain't whisper. I said what I said. And a lot of Black men don't like when I say things like this online. They call me a man basher. You can call me whatever the hell you want. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Well, that is the final thoughts of the Lisa Durden check-in. Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
We will be talking next week.
Yes.
Ciao, ciao.
Hashtag Lisa Durden check-ins.